So we've seen Team Paladin take on +20s and time them. But this time, we wanted to take things a step further. So I got the gang back for another bonus episode, but this time we're going in with 1 prop and 4 ret. That's right, no healer this time. Now, we're not the best players in the world, so this could go horribly wrong, and we've never done anything like this before. Alright, no fancy graphics this time, but we're going to jump straight into it, and we're going to start with a Neltharus 16. We felt 16 was the most appropriate level to start on. We didn't want to start too high. We didn't know what was going to happen. I think most of the guys tweaked their build so that we got a little bit more group healing, and we also discussed the possibility of rotating our Blessing of Sacrifice, whether that be trash packs or the boss. But Dilly didn't really change much. I just went full burr. Though, I mean, however, my build does come with a bit of AoE healing, and I'm not quite sure in terms of prop paladin, but I believe Bloodleth also took some talents to help out with the group healing. And well, you'll see how much healing he does. Now, because of the fact that we had no healer, we felt like we needed to be massively prepared. Again, we didn't know what to expect. So the team were assigned a marker for CC. We made sure everyone was aware of the entire route that we were going to take, instead of just blindly following the tank, I guess. You know, DPS brain. You guys know what I'm talking about. And between the 4 ret paladins, I believe Heimer and Moffish went single target, which of course left both myself and Avo to go burr. The group thought this was necessary because it was a tyrannical week, and ret typically don't do very well with single target. What a bunch of team players. I was never going to change. Dilly's all about that burr. Along with tyrannical, it was paired with afflicted and bolstering. Pretty decent week to push keys, if you ask me. The first lot of chains goes down surprisingly well, and we move on to the next ad pack. Now, being a tyrannical week, we thought it may be best to save Bloodlust for the boss, even though it was only a 16. I think maybe on another day with a healer, we'd probably just pull like 5 packs and Bloodlust. Because it's not about the gear, we're geared really well. It's about the fact that we lack so much single target damage, and you'll probably see that on a couple of the bosses. So what we discussed as a group in terms of healing, basically as a paladin, everyone will just look after themselves. We'll test the ad packs, and maybe during the key throughout boss fights, we'll see if Blessing of Sacrifice is something that we need to start throwing out. Trash packs, however, up till now, and it was no issue at all. Everyone did a great job at looking after themselves. They didn't take so much damage anyway. All of the special abilities that you really need to interrupt were taken care of. And well, the damage was there. But eventually we do find ourselves at Magmatusk, the first boss, and being a tyrannical week, this was the real test. This guy by no means is the biggest healing check that we're going to have to deal with, but it would somewhat give us a rough idea just how some of these boss fights would turn out. So of course we begin the encounter, we pop drums, and just look at all the consecration and the hammers going out. Oh man, it's hilarious. So within about 30 seconds, we managed to get the boss down to 50%. We got our first wave of volatile mutation, and it really didn't do a lot of damage. The guys do a great job healing themselves back up, and in 1 minute and 21 seconds, we take down the boss. Well, that was easy. Maybe 16 was too low? Ah well, we've started the key now, so we've got to finish. Alright, we're going to fast forward to the second boss, purely because the next lot of trash we take chains, so there's nothing to really talk about. Oh, bit of a hot take by the way, I actually really enjoy the interactions with the chains in Neltharus. I've spoken to a lot of players within the community and they really dislike it. I don't know, personal preference, it's a new thing for me I guess, the interaction, and a massive amount of trash that just dies instantly. Assuming you've done it correctly obviously, because well, not everyone does it and sometimes it bugs, so it can go wrong. So second boss, and again with the mentions of chains, because that's the mechanic we have to deal with, and it's the mechanic that we are most concerned about for this fight, purely because breaking each chain deals a lot of AoE damage. And as you can see, there is a lot of damage going out, but luckily for us being paladins, we're pretty good at keeping ourselves topped up, though you can't stand in the swirlies. Poor Avo, she was the only person that didn't actually get a chain. There's no Keter in this run, so I have to pick a new target, right? Oh, and could someone please tell Heimer to accept that summon? Oh, this bug drives me mad. We pick Avo up and we prepare ourselves for the second lot of chains. And I think everyone was on the same page for this one because, well, that's a lot of bubbles. We push on, we take down this boss, and we move on. Now, I don't want to talk about too many of the ad packs because, honestly, it hasn't been much of a challenge. It's all the same sort of stuff. Whenever one of us takes a little bit of damage, we just use Word of Glory, and we're pretty much full HP. Afflicted is being dealt with really well. Interrupts and stops have been really good as well. And I guess the only thing that's really been a little challenging at times is the fact that we're all melee. I mean, 5 consecrations on the ground. Sometimes it hides the lava pools. Oh, sanguine, that would have been horrible. I guess perhaps on a fortified week we'd have a bit more to talk about when it comes to the trash packs. But being tyrannical, well, I guess we can focus a little bit more on the bosses. And that brings us to the third boss, Forge Master Gorek. Yeah, so this one can be a little bit of a healer check. And of course, once again, because we're all melee, positioning could be very difficult at times. However, being a rep paladin, there is a talent we take, I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure every paladin takes it, at least ret anyway. And I think that really helped for this fight because obviously there's occasions when you have to spread for the mechanics, and the AoE damage that went out was actually okay. I mean, we're pretty tanky as it is, we didn't take too much damage, and again, literally like one word of glory pretty much tops us up to max HP. Now, there's obviously a drawback that we haven't spoken about. I mean, if we're spending holy power on Word of Glory, we're therefore doing less damage. So is it really worth trying to play without a healer? I don't know, but it made the key exciting. So we survived the healing check. Unfortunately, we let an afflicted go off, but we took down this boss and we moved on. Now, we got to the pack in the middle of the room just before we go to the last boss, and I really wasn't sure what to expect from the Blazewing. I mean, albeit being a tyrannical week, so the mob's not exactly buffed by anything. But again, this is another pretty nasty pack that does a lot of damage, but it honestly wasn't an issue. So we find ourselves at the last boss, and being a paladin, we have that reassurance that Bubble can potentially save our lives. Because here, a lot of players fail. The boss will cast its shield, the players need to pick up and break it with the treasures, and whilst that is all going on, we've got a lot of swirlies and lava on the ground. A tyrannical 16, I'm not sure if that would have one-shot us, but it's obviously something you want to avoid. I pick up my first treasure and it gives me the ranged ability. The first shield goes out and it's dealt with within 2.2 seconds. Really good job by Team Paladin. I pick up my second treasure and I can't believe my luck because it gives me the ranged ability again. I mean, if it gives you the charge ability as a paladin, you're basically just going to bubble and then use it, because the chances of surviving after charging in, well, it can be pretty tough. I try my luck at picking up a second one and it gives me melee. And if you have two, it's always the second one you use first. So going into this one, I definitely want to use bubble. So the shield comes out, I press bubble, I use the melee, and I didn't really need to use the ranged one because the team did a very good job, but I used it anyway. Though unfortunately we lost Heimer. We pick him back up, we take down the boss, and we end up two-chesting this Neltharus 16 with 5 minutes and 26 seconds remaining. And just look at the healing, the damage, everything was good. I just wish we could take this Neltharus weapon to the next place. And you know what? We only had 2 deaths, honestly, 2 individual mistakes, just standing in stuff. So it wasn't anything mechanically that we couldn't deal with. So that was actually kind of reassuring. So we decided to bump it up and go to a Neltharian's lair. Though at this point we wasn't sure if this dungeon was perhaps a fluke, and we really wasn't sure how high we wanted to go, so we only upped it by 1 key level, and if this really wasn't a test, well, then I guess we'd have to take it a little bit higher. Okay, so for this one, because again it is a tyrannical week, I'm not going to talk about a lot of this dungeon. Though of course things would be totally different if this was a fortified week, because the pelters in this place, man, they hurt. So in this run, I'm only going to cover the bosses, where I personally feel like at least the first 2 bosses will go absolutely fine, but the last 2, those could be very tricky. Oh, and I don't know if you noticed, but I think there was some confusion about whose key it was. We all jumped down and yeah, no one started the key. That's actually the first time this has ever happened to me, but I'm sure some of you have experienced this before. All right, so eventually the key gets put in and we make it to the first boss. And just as I imagined, this one really wasn't that difficult. Shatter being the AoE ability that the boss does. Well, because as I mentioned earlier, paladins have that little bit of extra range, this really wasn't an issue. As long as we were smart enough, we didn't move too much so we didn't take too much damage. And of course, we keep ourselves topped up. So this boss goes down absolutely fine and we move on. Boss number 2. There's something I didn't consider for this one until it happened. The claws that come out of the ground and grab you. Yeah, we're all melee. And it was a little tricky at times. At one point, I think I trolled and I tried standing on the tank. Yeah, my plan failed. Bloodleft didn't die. We'll get him next time, man. All right, on to Neuraxis, the one I feared probably the most. We'll be sacrificing a lot of damage on the boss and the ads to try and keep ourselves alive when we need it. So on this one, we needed to be very good with our utility and our defensives. But let's face it, we have a lot. The first lot of ads come down and they get absolutely destroyed. Though we could have been a lot better with placing the Toxic Wretch. That would have slowed him down massively. Yeah, I really sucked at that. The second lot of ads spawn, and we're in a bit of a trickier situation, but we're okay. A couple of members are low on health. We're having to sacrifice a little bit of damage to do some healing, and just as we're killing off the second ad, well, everyone's hit with the Toxic Wretch dot. And along with this, we have Afflicted that's about to occur. So we're basically in the position where we have to fight through the pain, sacrifice some of the damage to heal ourselves, and make sure the Afflicted is dealt with. But of course, because I am grouped with a bunch of hero paladins, this tricky task doesn't actually seem too challenging. So we push on, we take down this guy, and we find ourselves at the last boss. So because we're all melee, we have the advantage where everyone is pretty much going to be stacked together. This is obviously good because that means the walls are going to spawn on melee. We will have very little distance to travel, which means the boss will deal less damage to the group. Because believe me, you don't want this boss walking around on a tyrannical week. That's gonna hurt. The first ad comes out and goes down really well, though it's probably worth pointing out that all DPS have their wings active. Now, maybe looking back at the footage now, just before the second ad spawns, all of our DPS cooldowns become available. It probably would have been better to hold off for a couple of seconds. And unfortunately, the ad spawns on the other side of the boss, so it's got to do a little bit of walking to get to us. So big AoE damage goes out, but the group deal with it really well. We take down the second ad, and I realise with 30% left to go, no one's died in this dungeon yet. But of course, as you would imagine, after realising this, the boss casts Landslide, and Bloodleft decides to go for a little swim. Oh no. There's a little bit of panic on the Discord at the time. The entire situation intensifies. The boss needs to move, so everyone takes a lot of damage, and this is where a lot more healing is required and defensives are used. Again, handled very well. It could have been a lot worse, but would you believe it? We not only timed this run with 0 deaths, but we just missed the free chest by 1 second. Man, I should have baited you guys with the title. I should have listed it like, you remember the previous series? Was it the DK? Tank gets knocked into lava and ruins a free chest. Yeah, maybe I should have done that. That was funny. But hey, plus 17, no healer, flawless run, no deaths. Clearly, this wasn't a test. So I decided to make a bold decision. We had a key in the group that looked tough for a tyrannical week, especially with no healer. And that key was an Uldaman plus 20. That's right, this was the big test. A plus 20 with no healer. Alright, so we begin the key. I'll quickly go over a couple of things as we take down the first ad pack, but for the most part, I think we're just going to show the bosses. So obviously, to begin with, being a plus 20, we knew this was going to be a massive step up to what we were currently doing. And of course, it's pretty standard for most groups, but the first boss we are going to go to and pop drums is going to be Bromac. The second and last thing I just wanted to mention before we get there is that it was getting quite late in the evening. It was nearly 11 PM and it sounded like a couple of the guys on Discord were getting a bit tired. And what happens when we get tired? Well, of course you lose focus, concentration, and you start making some mistakes. Alright, so we are tanking the 2 berserkers just before Bromac, and at 40% we decide to take him into the boss. Now, we do this because at 40%, the berserkers enrage. When they do this, they empower all ads around them, which means they deal a hell of a lot more damage, but they also take a lot more damage. So it's a bit of a high risk, high reward situation. Now, we get to the first totem where big AoE damage is coming out, and we've already taken Bromac down to 70%. The damage output from the totem seems a little scary at first, but we handle it very well. And I don't even pop any defensives, which, looking back at it now, it would probably be more beneficial actually using them instead of just holding on to them for those emergency situations. Yeah, overall, I've been pretty bad with that sort of thing for the Paladin, and it's something I need to improve on. The second totem comes out, and I do actually use Shield of Vengeance. Now, in these high AoE situations, this is something that I definitely want to use instead of just holding onto it, because the damage that the bubble absorbs also explodes to mobs around me when it finishes. So although you may look at it as a defensive, it can also do quite a bit of damage. Definitely something to consider getting better at if you're looking to min-max the Ret Paladin. So the second totem was a little harder to manage, but we got past it and no one died. Now, the third totem comes out and we're in a bit of a situation. I'm a bit slow on the Afflicted. I managed to get one of them, and I can see a second one in the middle of all the mobs. Sometimes when this happens, I mean, we've got all of the consecration and all the hammers is a bit of a mess. And to mention once again that it's a bit late for everyone. So concentration's not as good as it could be. So unfortunately, the Afflicted goes out, and I make a quick decision to sack the tank and press bubble. This means blood will now take 30% less damage, but because of my immunity, I won't actually take any damage myself. Plus, it got rid of my Afflicted dot, which I didn't actually realize it would do at the time, but I guess it's an immunity, right? So it will clear everything. Yeah, I'm still kind of learning Paladin. Now we get to around 25%. The boss starts casting one of its thundering slams, and unfortunately Heimer's just a little bit too slow getting out. We do pick him back up, but unfortunately for Heimer, there's a bit too much damage going out, and he goes down again. No more combat reses available, but we are able to push on and we take down the boss. We backtrack and make our way to the Lost Dwarves, and this one really wasn't too much of an issue. It can get a little tricky at times, there is not a lot of room and there's so much on the floor. It also doesn't help that Consecration is covering it up and it's everywhere. So yeah, not much to cover as mentioned. We do take down these guys and we move towards the next boss. Alright, so on to Telondrus. There are really two things that make this very difficult, and it's a big healer check. We have the nasty bleed that goes out on a single player, and we also have the knockback that deals massive AoE damage. Now, I've healed this on the Mistweaver Monk for the challenge, and I really didn't have a great time with it. So doing this one without a healer could be very difficult. Now, we went into this encounter and we didn't prep a rotation for sacks or defensives. However, comms was very, very good. Whenever someone had the bleed on them, someone was always calling out to say that they were going to help with healing. And of course, we keep ourselves topped up as well. So when these bleeds did go out and the healing was required, the guys once again honestly did an amazing job keeping everyone alive. Oh, it was also pretty helpful that, 5 paladins, if the boss ever needed a stun, well, I'm pretty sure we had that covered. So we do indeed take this guy down. No one dies, but I did kind of miss a death. Yeah, Ash missed a Moffish. Kind of got a bit too excited when Blood was gathering up the ads just before the third boss, where he didn't quite have all the aggro. Yeah, and he bit the big one. Silly Moffish. On to my least favorite fight of this entire place. Embryon. This guy, 5 melee, all the fire going out, having to spread. Yeah, this encounter is just a pain in the ass, especially if you're playing like a Momentum Demon Hunter, for example. Lucky for us, we don't have to dash around. We've also got the advantage of having that extra range, but still, positioning for this boss is pretty awful. Not to mention the position we're currently tanking him in, I'm not a fan of, because obviously this is where the fire spawns, right next to the ad. And obviously if you stand too close, well, it just leaves less time for you to actually move and get out of the way. It's okay, I moan at Blood all the time for tanking him here. He knows, it's nothing new, but he still does it, man. He still does it. So unfortunately, we lose Avo. I have no idea how Heimer and Moffish stay alive, and we transition into phase 2. Now, we pick Avo up and we get back to the first phase, and as the Afflicted spawn, I simply tunnel looking for where they are. I notice one on the other side of the room that I really need to get to. I don't see the fire coming towards me from the middle of the room, and I take it to the face and die. Now, I do get picked back up. I decide to delay it because there's a lot of fire going on, and I have to quickly rush to an ad to build Holy Power so that I can use Word of Glory to heal myself. I kind of forget at times that I've actually got Flash Heal. So there's a lot of pulsing AoE damage going out, and because I'm not in the same half as everyone else, well, they've already killed the ads, so I'm taking all this damage and I can't build up Holy Power. So of course I panic, I use Lay of Hands, and I finally make it to an ad that they haven't finished off. Whew, that was a close one. We get back to the first phase, we take down the boss, and we have over 12 minutes remaining to finish this dungeon. Now, we get to the last boss with 5 minutes remaining and 2 additional deaths. Obviously not me, I wouldn't die. We begin and the race was on. I forget to pop Bloodlust right at the beginning, and I decide I'm going to wait until everyone's cooldowns come back. And because we're all rep paladins, I only have to wait 1 minute. One of the knockbacks was a little scary, a couple of the guys got really low, and Heimer just managed to save himself from dying. Now, I got my cooldowns back, I popped my potion, but then I suddenly realized I don't actually have any more drums left. And the damage output that this guy was doing, well, it was causing some issues and we had to do a lot more healing than we anticipated. So the guys were popping more defensives, we were utilizing our Blessing of Sacrifice, and space was becoming a real pain in the butt. The floor was completely covered on one side and we were trying to move the boss across the room, and unfortunately here, Moffish stood in one of the swirlies, took a bit too much damage and died. Now, as mentioned previously, both myself and Avo were the Crusader Strikes build, focused on AoE, whereas Heimer and Moffish were single target, so their DPS was really crucial. We go into the soak phase and we do pick Moffish up. We reposition the boss on the other side of the room, and I haven't mentioned it now, but I did say to the guys on Discord that I ran out of drums and I didn't realize. So throughout this entire fight so far, a couple of the guys had actually been going through their bags to see if they had some. We get to just over 20% remaining, and Heimer comes to the rescue and finds his drums. Pretty good timing because nearly all of us had offensive cooldowns to press, and we really needed to pump now. We got to around 12% and we were running out of space. Luckily, we entered the soak phase, but time was running out and we had just over 1 minute remaining. However, we still had Bloodlust ticking, and oh boy were these guys pumping, because that last 10% went in a matter of seconds. And so, just like that, with a prop paladin and 4 rep paladins, we timed a tyrannical +20 Uldaman with 1 minute and 2 seconds remaining. Who needs healers when you have a paladin? Oh, that's going to be another one for the channel points. We actually got 3 rating for this, which was hilarious. So I just want to mention that there were a few hairy moments that you saw. The comms were absolutely great. The guys played really well. We had good damage, the CC was on point, great healing all round, and we just timed to 20 with no healer. That's insane. Probably something that would be more easily achievable if we had some meta classes, but a prop paladin and 4 rep paladins. And I gotta tell you, honestly, this is the most fun I've had this season. And doing these full paladin groups has been a great laugh. The best part, I guess, is just the company. The guys are great. I love hanging out with them. And to be quite honest, the Loot Goblins community is absolutely amazing. And if you would like to be involved and join us for some of the keys that we do, well, the Discord is constantly growing. It's very welcoming and friendly, and there's no other community like it. So if any of you guys are interested in joining the Discord, I will have it linked in the description as always. So what's next for the Paladin and the Paladin team? Well, this might actually be the last one including the team, but I do have another video idea that I'm currently working on. However, going back to the Discord, someone on there did mention that it would be pretty funny to do an all Paladin raid. So if you guys have made it this far, well, you've obviously enjoyed the video, so why not show your appreciation and give this video a like? But not only that, let me know in the comments below if you would genuinely be interested in doing an all Paladin raid. If there is enough interest, I will make it happen. It will be recorded, and well, I guess depending on the outcome, you might see it on YouTube. I don't just want to make a flop video. We have to clear it, of course. And being a whole Paladin raid team, well, I mean, normal would be fine. I think we might struggle with heroic. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Someone on the Discord also suggested the fact that I've done the Paladin. Why not the monk? Well, I mean, I'd be open to it, but I'm really not feeling it at the minute, I'll be honest. And it probably means that you guys want me to heal that one, because we did do the Mistweaver challenge. And I mean, we did 20s on the Paladins. I don't want to heal 20s on the monk. But yeah, I'm going to wrap this video up. As mentioned, I hope you guys did enjoy today's episode. If these wacky little groups is something you guys enjoy and you want to see more of, well, once again, let me know in the comments below, and we can consider doing more things like this in seasons to come. But that's me done. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.